Welcome back to Rumi Gold, where quiet mastery begins. What if peace shows up only after you stop fighting? What if the thing you're clinging to is the only thing blocking you from freedom? What if you could feel powerful without needing to control? What if letting go was the unlock you've been circling for years? And what if nothing new had to happen for you to feel whole again? Today we explore letting go not as a tactic, but as a truth. Let that land, pause, notice where your mind wants to rush in, to figure it out, to dissect. That's familiar, isn't it? But today, stay with the simplicity. Not one finger lifts, not one muscle tightens. Just notice the tension, the grasping, that old urge to seize, to own, to master by force. Where, right now, are you holding something that doesn't belong to you anymore? Where do you feel weighed down, not because of how much you're carrying, but because you simply never learned to put it down? And where in your life have you confused holding on with being responsible? Let that breathe. I know those places. I've lived them. There's a story I've told very few people. Years ago, I built my world around being the pillar, the man who kept it all together. Business, family, reputation. If something was slipping, I caught it. If someone needed saving, I showed up. I held my breath so everyone else could breathe easier. From the outside, it looked noble, steadfast, maybe even strong. But here, as the truth, most men say aloud, the strongest grip is often hiding the biggest fear. Fear that if I loosened, even for a second, it would all fall apart. Fear that without control, I'd be invisible, or lost, or nothing. That's a heavy weight to carry. It's the weight that slowly disfigures your spirit, creases your forehead, ages your heart. It sneaks into your mornings, makes your coffee taste like armor, not warmth. Let that be felt. Letting go isn't collapse. It isn't resignation. It isn't surrendering to weakness. I didn't learn that until the night I walked out onto my back porch, late, long after everyone was asleep. Just the sound of distant traffic and a breeze shaking loose dead leaves from the old lemon tree. For once, there was nothing left to manage. It was just me. Just the weight I'd chosen to carry. And the silence that finally asked, why? That night was a doorway. I realized no applause, no one watching, no deal on the line, that I could just let one thing go. Not all of it, but I allowed myself to unclench. Not with drama, just in the smallest way. I said, I'll let tonight be simple. It was strange. Relief came slow, first in the jaw, then my shoulders. It felt like releasing a knot I didn't remember tying. The world didn't end. No one fell apart. But I noticed for the first time in years what peace actually felt like. It wasn't an event. It was the absence of struggle. You already know this. There's a sacred elegance in releasing what no longer fits. In opening your hands, even as your heart still races. The world will tell you to brace harder, perform more, strive further. Sometimes even your own history will shout, don't let go, not safe. But what if real safety, real power lives in what you release, not what you hold? Where is your mind rehearsing old debts, old arguments, old identities? What would it mean to unhook, just for tonight, from the idea that you have to earn your worth through holding everything together? Let that breathe. You don't have to collapse. You don't have to vanish. Letting go doesn't erase you. It unclutters you. It makes space for peace to find you, for abundance to land without your grasping at it. It's not about giving up. It's about giving yourself back to what matters. This isn't about motivation. It's an initiation into peace, into flow, into real, unshakable abundance. Not because you pushed harder, but because you allowed. This is the invitation, and it doesn't need to be dramatic to be true. Let every breath stretch that truth louder inside you. There's nothing to prove. Most of us wake up already gripping, not just the sheets or the phone, but the day itself. Like if we just squeeze right, plan enough, keep watch, nothing will go wrong. Control is something we were told would keep us safe, and so we manage, and we plan, and we strategize, sometimes so tightly we forget how to breathe. Picture a clenched fist. All your fingers pressed tight, skin stretched, blood moving slow. This is what most of us are doing inside, gripping our lives with the same white-knuckle energy we de-use, trying not to drop something fragile. But the longer you hold, the more tired you become. The fist gets sore, the body gets tense. You already know this. Some people call it ambition or attention to detail. It shows up as color-coded calendars, triple-checking emails, not letting anyone else decide. Sometimes it's a parent over-managing a child. Sometimes it's the friend who always drives, who can't ride shotgun. Because being in control is less scary than sitting with the unknown. But it costs you. There's a line between being prepared and being defended. You don't think it's fear, you think it's being responsible. That's what we've been told, that if you dainty grip hard enough, life falls apart. But fear has many disguises. Sometimes it calls itself discipline. Other times it feels like strategy. What it really is exhaustion dressed as achievement. Let that echo. Control numbs the part of you that knows how to listen. The intuition gets quieter. The gut gets crowded out by the checklist. Imagine standing in a field, trying to hear the wind, but covering your ears just in case a storm comes. That's what relentless control does. It silences the voice that guides you when maps run out. We build routines, fortress walls of daily habits, not for joy, but for safety. It's a subtle prison, lined with gold intentions, but a prison still. Think of how it feels when you memorize every outcome, anticipate every risk. You're not living, you're defending, and you get tired. Each new system you put in place is another bar on the window. After a while, you can't see out. You forget what light is. You start to confuse safety with life itself. Control feels powerful until it doesn't. There will always be more variables, more things to anticipate, more people who don't follow your script. The world is too wild for total management. You can't make the rain fall straight. You can't choreograph the breath of someone you love. Still, you try. That's the error. That's the discipline. You double down, add more layers, stack more habits. The outcome: less space, not more. Less trust, not more. Less intuition, not more. Look at your week. Where have you traded ease for strategy? Where has control become a wall? You already know this. A clenched fist versus an open palm. It's that simple. The closed hand holds tightly, but nothing new can enter. The open palm may lose what it carries, but it can receive. There's nothing to prove. We cling because we were told to. At work, it sounds like I just want to get it right. At home, it's micromanaging the way you load the dishwasher or triple locking the door. In relationships, it's correcting how someone speaks, stands, moves. Underneath all of it is the idea: if I don't manage reality, reality will hurt me. Let that land. You start to believe that abundance is only for those who strategize most, plan best, control outcomes perfectly. But prosperity, real internal prosperity, grows where you create space. Space in your calendar, space in your body, space in your story. An open palm, not a closed fist. Even now, you can feel where you've been gripping. Shoulders tense, jaw set, an air of waiting for the next thing to break. Peace never visits a guarded mind. Intuition never lands at a table with no seat. If you want to know why you're tired, look at what you're still gripping. What have you not let yourself release? Where have you held the illusion that more managing equals more safety? Your body already knows. It aches from this holding. The cost is your clarity. The cost is your calm. The cost is your presence with what is, not what you wish it would be. Open palm, let that picture return. The discipline isn't about being passive or quitting. It's not neglect, it's trust. Letting moments breathe. Letting others move in their own rhythm. Easing the jaw. Giving your intuition room to speak, even if the words don't fit your plan. This isn't about being right, it's about loosening the fist so your life can breathe again. You hear the word surrender, and maybe you think of giving up, walking away, letting something break. Most of us grew up with that picture, this idea that surrender is the end of trying, so you push a little longer. You grit your jaw, clench your fists, and make your chest tight. But what if that's not it at all? What if surrender isn't a white flag? What if surrender is actually a tuning fork, a vibration, a quiet, calm frequency running through the middle of your life? Not weakness, not failure, but a new kind of signal. Let that land. You see it most clearly in the nervous system. Think about the way your shoulders ride up to your ears when you're tense. Notice how your spine curls when you brace for an argument or expect a loss. Most modern men are carrying a battery of stress they never put down. They stay in that brittle alertness for months, even years. And in the middle of that, there's a moment, maybe just a few seconds, when everything goes quiet. You exhale all the way, your shoulders drop. For a second, you feel as heavy as the chair beneath you. Nothing gets solved, but something old lets go. That's surrender. Not a story, but a nervous system event. The healing starts when you stop prying the gears. Surrender says, I don't have to outthink this. I am already here. There's nothing to prove. Surrender isn't passive. It's not quitting the game. It's standing so still inside yourself. The noise can't move you anymore. This isn't about waving a white flag. It's a different kind of posture. Like water present, level, uncompromising. Or like a craftsman who sharpens his blade, then puts it down. He knows the edge doesn't get stronger by working it to death. He trusts the process. That's the frequency of surrender. It's faith on a cellular level. It doesn't argue with life. It lets life work through. And when the mind's not fighting, there's space for another kind of clarity to enter. Grace comes through open doors, not closed fists. Let's make it real. Think about when you're working on something that just won't click. Maybe a piece of writing, a song, a design. You wrestle it for hours. Every solution feels forced. Your mind is noisy. There's sweat in your thoughts. But then you reach a doorway. You put the pen down. You breathe. You let the project rest. And in that spaciousness, something quiet floats up. The best ideas never came from crushing the problem. They arrived only when you stepped out of the way. Creative flow is the child of surrendered attention. When you walk away, when you release, there's an emptiness, and in that emptiness, something true moves in. Let's sit with that. Same thing with money. There's a kind of terror people carry in their stomach about finances, the fear that if they soften even a little, everything will collapse. You clutch every decision, you chase every number, you replay old warnings from parents or mentors who were taught to survive, not to trust. But sometimes, when you're up against the wall, when forcing stops working, there's an opening. A man I know tried for years to build his business by grinding harder, pushing his employees, losing sleep. Nothing shifted. Only when he stepped back, handed off control, and released the idea that he alone could save it, did he see a breakthrough. Clients arrived, solutions emerged. His energy stopped choking the system. There wasn't a grand revelation. There was a release, the difference between closed fists and open hands. The money came when he started tuning into the frequency of trust. It doesn't have to be dramatic to be true. I want you to feel this for yourself now. Wherever you are, in a chair, on the floor, walking, just notice your jaw, your chest, your hands. Is there tension there? Notice if you're bracing, holding, gripping. Now breathe in, and on your next exhale, let whatever you're carrying drop a little. As you breathe, picture the difference between a clenched fist and an open palm. Surrender isn't about letting the world run you over. It's about dropping the tension that says, it's all on me. Even for 10 seconds, experiment with letting your weight sink. Can you feel the gap between survival and presence? That's the discipline. Surrender, in its purest form, isn't about escaping effort. It's choosing stillness over strain, alignment over force. It's trusting the scaffolding of your own life, even if you can't see the beams. In most situations, there's a point where control becomes exhaustion and surrender becomes power. The trick is, most people wait too long. They collapse, burned out, and call it surrender. But true letting go is a preparation, not a breakdown. It's trusting that what's yours will find you, and what isn't will fall away. That trust isn't lazy. It's the sharpest edge you'll ever carry. Let that echo. You already know this. You know what your body feels like when you resist, and you know what it feels like when you let go. This isn't about motivation. This is about a quieter kind of mastery, a mastery that says, I am aligned, not because the work is done, but because I stopped fighting myself. Surrender moves like a current under the floor. It holds everything up. Sometimes stillness. What if letting go is the most active thing you'll do all year? What if the space you refuse to make was the exact shape of the answer you're craving? What if guidance doesn't enter because you're busy holding the door shut with both hands? What happens if you give up the need to control the timeline and let something greater redraw the map? Let that land. There's a kind of intelligence moving through the world that's older than your strategy. It's not loud or rushed or predictable. It doesn't reward perfect vision boards or punish you for missing a detail. It waits for room, and most days we don't give it any. Most people think manifestation is all about force, holding visions so tight their knuckles change color, rehearsing affirmations, gripping their journal for answers. But force is heavy, like trying to force a seed to sprout with your bare hands. It just doesn't work, not for long, not without cost. There's another way. You already know this. You've tasted it before, even if you couldn't name it. Surrender doesn't mean you disappear. It means you get out of the way. It's permission for something bigger to step forward. Think about a tree, heavy branches growing wild, thick with old wood. If the gardener never prunes, sunlight can't get in, air stops moving, new fruit is choked off before it even forms. But one steady cut opens the canopy. The whole tree breathes. Growth returns. Pruning isn't punishment, it's preparation. Let's sit with that. Each time you set down the need to know, even for a day, you're making the same kind of offering. You're saying, whatever is true, I'm willing to see it. Whatever wants to be born here, I'm not blocking the light. Kabbalah puts it this way: when the vessel empties, the light flows. When you're already full of opinions, protections, tight plans, there's no entry for miracles. Space invites the infinite. Letting go isn't a weakness, it's faith in motion. Let me tell you about Jacob, a man who built a company the hard way. Every detail was managed, every launch mapped. He lived on caffeine and spreadsheets. Then a market collapse hit. His model buckled. Partners panicked. Jacob froze until tension became exhaustion, then relief. He set down the master plan, admitted he didn't know what tomorrow needed, stopped playing chess with the universe, and let things fall apart. Within weeks, a new partnership arrived from a direction he'd never imagined. The business reshaped itself, leaner, cleaner, strangely easier. Revenue doubled. Waste fell away. He didn't drive that outcome. He allowed it. He pruned, and the sun got in. It doesn't have to be dramatic to be true. When you grip something out of fear, you block the very current that could nourish it. Force creates friction. Surrender creates flow. Go through your morning and notice where you're tightening your jaw. Worrying over emails before breakfast. Planning every minute so nothing slips through the cracks. That's old scarcity. That's trying to fill a cup already overflowing with stress. But what happens if you empty the cup even briefly? Suddenly there's room. A conversation lands. An idea returns. An answer shows up. Often quietly, sometimes disguised as loss, or a pause, or a phone call you didn't expect. Let that echo. Letting go isn't abandonment. It's acknowledgement that you never really held everything together anyway. Look at architecture. The spaces are what give the building its strength. The solid beams matter, yes, but remove every window, every moment of air, and the house becomes a box. Stale, unsupportive. No one wants to live in a box. Every breath you take is a silent agreement with space. Air makes the body work. Emptiness keeps you alive. Letting go is agreeing with the laws that built you. Most days, people manifest from fear. They chant, hustle, visualize. But underneath, they're saying, if I don't, nothing will change. That's anxiety, dressed as ambition. There's another way. Manifestation through space is trust long enough to notice what moves when you step aside. Try it. Before making your next decision, pause for a full breath. Put the phone down. Look at your hands. Let the outcome hover. Notice what wants to speak underneath the chatter. Don't force the answer. Every ending makes room for grace. Not every loss is a punishment. Some are openings. Some are entryways for the next chapter, designed by hands you can't see but feel. The paradox is real. When you stop holding so tightly, you're given something your mind couldn't assemble. Most of your best moments, the planned ones, but the deep, quiet ones arrived when you weren't trying so hard. The friendship you didn't pursue. The solution that showed up in the shower. The peace that finally arrived when you stopped arguing with the day. That's the way of quiet wealth. That's what it looks like to build from clarity, not chaos. What if letting go wasn't a skill you crossed off the list, but something you came back to day after day? What if release was a practice, not a milestone, more like breathing than like moving on? What if being able to let go, quietly, gently again and again, was more rare than ambition, and twice as valuable? What if every tight grip you carried secretly kept you from the very thing you thought you needed? And what if today you remembered that emptiness isn't loss, it's an invitation? Let that linger. Start here. Most men are taught to finish things, to achieve closure, to resolve. No one teaches us how to sit beside what hurts. No one tells you that letting go is not a decision you make once, but a way of being you have to discover, sometimes 100 times in one morning. You think of release like deleting a file, but your heart is not a hard drive. There are days the thought loops return, days the memory aches, mornings when you wake up still holding on to an argument, a regret, or the outline of someone you thought you had to become. Release isn't final. Release repeats, just as breath comes and goes and comes again. Every inhale an offering, every exhale a surrender. You can't hold your breath, just like you can't hold your timeline, or your image, or your old story forever. Sooner or later, something has to go. Usually, it's control. This isn't about motivation. Notice the places where you try to resolve everything in one dramatic gesture. But the soul doesn't specialize in neatness. It moves in seasons, cycles, spirals. The same pain comes back until you kneel beside it and let it take its shape without resisting. I had a client once, a woman who wanted love more than anything. She had every app, every date, every plan. Nothing landed. The turning point was not a breakthrough. It was the morning she woke up and said, "I'm willing to be empty here." A week later, she met someone who saw her fully. Not because she finally earned it, but because her hands, for the first time, were open. Let that land. There's this story, old as Winds and Master and the Teacup. A student comes, determined to be wise, hungry for the secrets. She keeps talking, keeps asking, keeps explaining who she thinks she is. The master offers tea. He pours. He keeps pouring. The cup overflows. Tea spills onto the table, the floor. "Why are you still pouring?" the student protests. "You don't even see how full you are all the time. You keep seeking change, but resist the one thing that lets change in emptying, letting go. Not for a trophy, or a badge, or a breakthrough, but so life can actually reach you. That's the discipline." Emotional release is a ritual. There is grief, quiet, unspoken, not always dramatic. There is anger that simmers, sometimes for years. Releasing isn't denial. Releasing means letting those feelings have their full say, and then allowing them to exit as breath exhales, as water flows. Some mornings, you'll wake up heavy, old disappointment, old self-contempt. You don't need to resolve them all at once. You meet them, name them, let them move, over and over. Identity too shed in layers. You don't become someone new by announcing it on New Year's. You become new by letting the old self fade day after day. Each time you notice yourself acting from an outgrown story, you have a sacred chance to loosen your grip. The ritual isn't glamorous. It's you pausing in silence, feeling the tightness in your jaw, releasing the fantasy of how it was supposed to go. You give that piece of self back. You let yourself be a little more unknown, a little less certain. and life somehow enters the crack you left open. Let's sit with that. Timelines, all the shoulds, all the quiet calendars you keep comparing your life against. Release here doesn't mean apathy. It means obedience to reality. It means waking up and realizing you are alive now. If you need to grieve a future that didn't unfold, do it. If you need to weep for a deadline you'll never meet, let yourself, but don't let your entire day be ruled by fantasies of later. Ritual release means coming back to now, over and over, like tuning a guitar, like setting a bone, like clearing a desk before you start the real work. It doesn't have to be dramatic to be true. If you want something simple, start here, tonight, before you turn off your light. Sit on your bed with both feet on the ground. Close your eyes, take a breath in, slow let it rise. As you exhale, imagine placing one worry, one regret, one outdated part of yourself in your open palm. Don't analyze it, just notice its weight. During your next exhale, unclench your hand. Let your fingers open. You don't have to solve it. Just let go for this breath. If the thought returns, do it again. Not for resolution, not for closure, but as a quiet ritual. You return to yourself, emptier, ready for what wants to arrive. Most men go their whole lives bracing against the wind, chasing answers, holding the wheel so tightly their knuckles go white. They call it control, they call it security, but deep down you know, control is just a name for the fear of not knowing. The harder you grip, the smaller your life becomes. Let that land. There's a discipline in learning how to unclench your fists. The world tells you to build, to scheme, to strategize your next 10 moves. But today, in the silence between thoughts, you remember, when you let go, life finds a rhythm of its own. It's not weak, it's not defeat, it's a kind of elegance, like water shaping stone. You already know this. When you loosen your plans for the day, when you step back, just for a moment, something gentle enters the room. Maybe it's clarity, maybe it's grace. It's always been waiting on the other side of your grip. This isn't about letting life happen to you. It isn't apathy, it's choosing to create space. You clear a spot on your desk, and inspiration sits down. You clear a worry from your mind, and the solution appears unannounced. You don't make this happen by force. You just let it be possible. Let's sit with that. You might wake up tomorrow with the same questions you have right now. The numbers won't add up. The inbox won't be empty. That phone call you've been avoiding, it's still waiting. But when you decide to surrender, just a notch, something shifts in your chest. You're not running. You're not hiding. You're just letting some of the weight slide off your shoulders. Imagine a mason setting a stone. He doesn't fight gravity. He uses it, every part of his body, present, alert, yet surrendered. When he finally lets go, the stone finds its rest by its own weight. That's the practice, over and over again, letting the stone settle the way it wants to settle. Not a show, not a performance, just practice every single day. You want things to change, but not everything is yours to move. Sometimes the act of letting go, of dropping expectations, fears, or plans, is what allows a door to open. You don't have to figure it all out. You never did. You take one measured breath. You wait to see what leaves and what stays. Trust the process. Trust your muscle for release. You've built it through years of tightness. Now you get to use it for something cleaner. There's nothing to prove. Start today with something small. Release that argument before it begins. Let go of the timer on your phone. Loosen your grip on the outcome of a single task at work. Notice the space that opens up, the way your chest feels different. Maybe nothing dramatic happens. Maybe it just feels a little bit lighter. That's enough. Surrender is a frequency. Play it low and let it hum in the background. If you notice old habits sneaking back in, just start over, quietly, privately. That's the discipline. Let these stand as vows, spoken first in silence, then lived without noise. I allow what is. I allow what is. I make space for next steps. I make space for next steps. I honor what leaves. I honor what leaves. I trust what stays. I trust what stays. I soften my hold. I soften my hold. I let clarity enter. I let clarity enter. I breathe with the unknown. I breathe with the unknown. I let peace shape my day. I let peace shape my day. Again, gentle, unforced. Repeat this, inside yourself or out loud 3 times. I let life dance me. I let life dance me. I let life dance me.